Photo Department's video on a reflection on reflections. Everything we see reflects light to a greater or lesser degree. Objects absorb and reflect different parts of the spectrum, and so we see colors. Objects can diffuse or scatter light, so we see softness. Reflections that happen with shiny surfaces are called specular. Light that hits such surfaces bounces off in parallel rays with little absorption, so you can see an image like a mirror. When we shoot shiny objects, we have to think about where we want to show reflections and where we don't. In this wine bottle, reflections just seem to be happening wherever. But in spending time with it, we start to understand where they come from and how to use them. Slowly put a card in here to define this edge, to fill this in, work with my exposure values to bring that back into line, and I still have my card here. I'm going to use the reflection to just give the left side a little bit nicer highlight in here. And then I want to show you something else. See here, we have a bottle, and because I put this piece of paper here way in the back, out of the frame, I now have this lovely little highlight here that defines that edge of the bottle. Also, I want you to notice the bottle has been cleaned. The greasy things are on there that ruin reflections are now gone, and you can control where your reflections are. Irregularly shaped objects are much more of a challenge. You got to put them out on the set. You got to spin them around and see what sort of works and what doesn't. I mean, look at that. It's just a nightmare. But you can find an angle maybe that's pretty good. It's just that the things that work on some sets just don't work here. I mean, this card, look at what it does here. It's outrageous. But that same card with an object that's not bouncing light around, and this is the same exposure. It's lovely. So much light is absorbed. There's so many different colors and different textures. There's none of the glare that these spectral highlights have, these spectral reflections. But with a little bit of work and messing around with the direction, you can get some nice results. But look at this other highlight that's come off of this thing. It's just a nightmare, really. So I want you to look at this object, and I want you to see there's a combination of light that's being absorbed and being reflected in the spectrum and some specular highlights. Because there is a bit of a shine, a bit of a smooth surface on this little pumpkin that gives us these little highlights. But they're in a place that we like them. They're not overwhelming. Not like this blue thing. Regular shapes are a little bit easier to work with. In this one, we worked around a little bit to try and find an exposure value, and I stuck a card in here. You've seen me do that, but it's not really at the edge. And I stuck a big card in here because I want to get started, but it's not at the edge either. Also, see how uneven and dark this is up here. Well, I did two things. I put a card back here out of camera, and it makes this fill in. I took this, I made it smaller and moved it back in the set, and I got this nice edge. And then I reduced the size of this card here so that I just have that right there. And here's what we get in the end. A little bit more control. As I say, a little bit easier. But the point is, we have reflections. Some of them we want, some of them we don't want, and our goal is to put them where we want them, to give the look that we're going for. Thank you for your kind attention.